Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, brought to you by me, Mal McCallion, and my co-presenter and good friend, Matt Goddard. Matt, how are you?
Hey Mal, I'm really well, thanks. How are you? Been a long
Um,
drive for today.
yes, this has been. I've ended up in sunny Truro, and it is very sunny today on my little tour. And yeah, no, it's been a good day. Although yes, it's been a long drive, but still very excited to get stuck into all of the stuff we've got today. And man, once again, it's just kept coming, hasn't it? All the news. So why don't we get stuck in first of all to our property news? So, first up on the property news platter is a brand new AI tool by 20CI, and it's a really good one, isn't it? It's all about property level data analyzed by AI, tested over a year. They've really done the work on this, right?
This is a fantastic example of, to use the old term, machine learning. I
Mm.
know it's still AI and it's maybe not as trendy and fashionable as saying AI, but the gang over there at 20EA have announced this just in the last couple of days, really.
Yeah.
But they're going to make a big song and dance of it this coming Thursday at the Kerfuffle conference, which I think is the 10th of July for anyone listening in advance over at Wembley
I,
Stadium.
everybody's got tickets, I'm sure they have. If they haven't, they're crazy,
If they haven't, I'm sure they can hit you up, Mal, for one or two. But
for
you're going
sure.
to be there. I'm going to be there. Who wouldn't? But
100%.
it's basically propensity data, isn't it? Then they're modeling out who's going to be ready to sell, rather than just the average trope of the property sells every 7 years and you're working through it. It's got a much more detailed approach, right down into the postcode level, property level information around that. So it's great to see them crunching all that number and data that they've been pulling in over the years and seeing it being utilized in something other than just here's the number of bedrooms and bathrooms you get for a given property, actually seeing some meaningful propensity data around it.
Yeah, the granular level that these guys have gone to and can get to, I think, is phenomenal. Obviously looking forward to Thursday and Kerfuffle event and making sure that, yes, we see as many people as possible, but seeing this product actually rolled out and in action is going to be super exciting, because I think that this is where AI is going to get us on so many other things, right? It is down to the kind of per property level. It is giving us some really helpful information that actually is going to be actionable, is going to help estate lettings agents do their jobs better, and it's going to be delivered almost instantaneously and just exactly where you need it. I think it's just such a great deployment of AI, and I think it's going to be something that a lot of people are going to want to have a look at, and I think it's going to be an ideal showcase for the power of this new technology and how it impacts our industry.
Yeah, perfect.
Brilliant stuff. And our next story is all about Richard Megson, who's the Managing Director of Sales Progression Specialist ASAP. He's been talking about some of the information and the data that we've got through from the stamp duty threshold, right?
That's the one. So we had the big surge where people were emptying their pipelines towards the end of March when those changes came in. And Richard's point really succinctly is that with the changes that sort of the external forces put on the market, it means that there's more challenges come through, because you have that government intervention with the reduced stamp duty, and then a lot of pressure on people in that part of the business, conveyancers specifically, sales progressions team, trying to make sure that deals went through to achieve that stamp duty deadline. I think Richard says in the article they emptied 40% of their pipeline in March, which is a heck of a lot
Wow.
to be getting over the line, and a phenomenal effort. And it's really good I think, to show sort of the nature of the conveyancers that they work with. It wasn't just a 9 till 5 o'clock and closing the doors and going, people working all hours to get these deals through. But then those external forces and those government interventions mean that everyone's playing catch up in April and May, because they've maybe burnt the oil a bit too hard during that period. And it's not, it's like some people might sit back and say, if they can do it in March, why not do it all other times? But it took a huge effort. And we saw it after COVID as well, didn't we? With the
Yeah.
changes. I think one of my friends, who's just actually Sam Mitchell, who's just joined Lohman, he said it was like pouring petrol on a bonfire, because obviously there's already a lot of pent up demand at that stage. And then for the government to make an intervention just wasn't necessary. And I think this is just highlighting that whenever that happens, it creates unhealthy fluctuations in our market.
Really, really does. And they keep doing it, right? And there's that sort of initial little buzz about how brilliant, but actually everyone's going to start flooding into the market and doing all sorts of funky and exciting stuff. But actually, in the end, what it does is it just skews the market ridiculously. And then everyone's got to absolutely run super fast at something, and then it, like you say, it's just burnout for a while before until everyone can start again. And it skews demand and supply because people do try and squash all of their properties onto the market before the deadline, and then of course there's a dearth of supply coming through in the pipeline straight afterwards. Yeah, listen, I'm a huge advocate of just steady, just stop messing about. Let the regulations just leave them where they are. Stop
When
it.
natural forces come into play.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think everyone remembers the old days where seasonality kind of felt seasonal. And now it's just, it's almost like regulation dictates where the market is at any one particular time in the year. And far too often it's been government intervention that has skewed it one way or the other. So, yeah, hopefully, at the very least, we've got a period of stability where we know where everything stands and we can all just work hard as we always do to those rules. But yeah, there's no sort of crazy spikes or anything like that coming up.
I feel like I want to stick a pin in you saying we've got a period of stability coming up, and for whatever drops next from wherever in the world,
You know that as of tomorrow.
yeah, there's
Yeah,
some
as of
sort
tomorrow
of
is going to be locked down again.
isn't there
No.
a big beautiful bill passing through in America or something? I jest, but in terms of the impact that our podcast has on the world, we've
Yeah.
mentioned a particular portal in the UK quite a lot, and this week they announced some innovation that they've been experimenting with. I thought maybe you want to
Wow.
fill me in on that.
Hold on. What you're saying that the dominant portal in the UK is innovating, and you gotta stop trying to poke me and wind me up on this. Listen, so the story, and it's a legit story. Rightmove has announced that it's experimenting with a new renovation feature. Okay, so it will be able to allegedly tell you whether there is extension potential for a particular property. Now, again, think the idea is reasonable. I think all of the caveats and the asterisks and the experimentation and the thinking about the potential of this particular idea is a little bit PR before the actual delivery. And it's also not them really doing it. It's a partner that they have adopted called RESI. So yeah, look, remains to be seen how good it is, what it actually does, whether it launches, how big it launches, etc. But also the huge caveat that at some stage, with the very greatest respect, you're all going to be paying for it, and you know that.
I
So
find it quite interesting that obviously it's as you say, Resi coming in as a partner and one of these new pieces that normally we see the big CRM introducing new functionality and under the guise that it's a partnership. And I think we saw, was it Street or Spectre a few weeks back, were saying they got a big fancy new feature from one of their partners that does planning applications. So to see
mm,
that move utilising this Resi company as a way of saying, well, actually, you could take your two-bed ground floor terrace property in Camberwell, and here's the development potential for it, and therefore what your price might be. It's
mm.
interesting to see people utilising third parties ultimately as ways in innovation rather than maybe adding stuff in themselves.
Yeah, obviously it de-risks it for Rightmove and make sure they don't have to actually spend any money on it before it's all out there. But yeah, look, I think I'm a huge advocate of innovation. I think any innovation in our industry is to be welcomed for sure. I do always worry that it's going to come at a price when it's adopted by this particular organization. But again, it remains to be seen whether it's something that consumers use, how big it's rolled out. But the theory of it is something that I'm sure others will be looking at as well, because I think it's a genuinely potentially helpful device for people to look at their homes and wonder whether they can actually improve the value of it themselves. Okay, so that is our property news for this week. Let us move on seamlessly to our AI and tech news. All right, we spoke about it, I think, last week, maybe the week before, about Siri and how rubbish Siri is on Apple. And Matt, it looks like they've listened to us.
It does, and I'm not surprised. We know from meetings that I've had this week that we're listened to in Australia and Dubai and even in Chelsea Harbour from one Mr. Gill.
And
The fact that
what
they're
Chelsea
listening
are.
to us over on the west coast of America as well. But we talked
That's a
about.
global audience, isn't it? Is that global? Yeah,
I believe
global.
so.
Wow.
It's all around the world. But that's not just where you and I travel either. But we talked about the fact that Siri had fallen behind. This Apple intelligence wasn't as intelligent as they want to. And their worldwide developer conference a few weeks back didn't even really mention AI in purposely to avoid it. But we also said if you can't keep up, why not look at partnering with somebody? And now Apple are looking at replacing Siri's AI with actually something like Anthropic's Claude and going down that route, or even using OpenAI more natively within it. And I said at the time,
Yeah.
it's my iPhone 16. I'm not suing Apple for the AI button. I've just hacked it to launch OpenAI voice mode. And it sounds like Apple are now following the same route, but doing it as a proper partnership.
Yeah, and I've heard Perplexity and various other names thrown in the ring as well. It definitely sounds like they are not quite flailing around, but certainly desperately trying to solve what is a kind of gaping wound, right? That every single day that goes by, and all these other frontier labs are releasing such great kit, and Apple, who used to be absolutely the innovator in technology, is lagging so far behind that they've just almost got to put a pin in it, bind the wound, and just get on with kind of the next level because they've lost this one. There's barely any comeback from this. Yeah, it's good to see. I think it's going to help a lot of people, particularly those who, sorry, Matt, bought their iPhone 18s or whatever it was, 16, sorry,
In an iOS.
in order to access their Apple Intelligence. At least there seems to be something coming that's gonna help a little bit. So our next story, Matt, I know you're always down with the kids, and yeah, you're always understanding what is trending. I believe the phrase is on Spotify and so on. So you've been listening to this band called the Velvet Sundown, which is getting a lot of listens, right?
It is indeed, Mal. And I love the fact to say down with the kids when we're talking about a nostalgic 1960s, 70s rock band where they all have long hippie hair and mustaches, and that's just the AI images of them. But
You were a kid back then.
I just enjoyed it. I could really put us in the mood by reaching back and getting one of the guitars and trying to sing her along for it. But I think that's maybe for
Mm.
one and maybe even an outtake episode. But no, so the Velvet Sundown appeared in everybody's Spotify playlists as the hot tracks to be listened to. And when I clocked them, there were about 350,000 listens and building quite well. I heard one particular review was saying about how middle of the road and boring they were. And I'll see that. Actually, I was quite enjoying it at that stage. And I think there's particular guitar solos in there. There was drum breaks that were quite entertaining. It's all, as I say, 60s, 70s tinge. Remind me a bit of Daisy Jones and the Six
Yeah,
from Amazon,
TV show.
that
Yeah.
TV series that or box set that was based on Fleetwood Mac and all the sort of controversies, put my teeth in, of that band. But ultimately, they're trying to claim the Velvet Sundown that they are a real band and they've blood, sweat, and tears have got them to where they are now and not anything else. There was a question for a little while if someone canny had used as an opportunity to promote them by pretending that they're AI but not being AI, but they were AI, just to get some more listens and focus.
Yeah.
And I think it hit the Times, it hit Rolling Stone before it actually hit the tech news, didn't it? And I think the one thing that really sold it for me is they almost protested too much about how they weren't AI yet. There was no social media profiles, there's no to tour dates. You couldn't see them playing Whiskey Go in LA, those sorts of classic rock and roll venues, or even King Tut's Wah Wah Hut in Glasgow, which is famously where Oasis started. There's not done any of that touring that we could see. It seems a bit like there's no, I was going to say no background, but maybe no backbone to the stories.
Yes, no, this essentially the short version is this is an AI band who's produced some AI music that has been released. They've been quite smart about how they've actually got it out because they seem to have put it onto loads of compilations where people have just they've been listening to some old, as you say, some old 60s nostalgia fare. And these have just dropped in almost seamlessly into it. Nobody's really noticed because it sounds like the same kind of thing. It's probably, oh, it must be just one of those bands that I forgot. But they've managed to rack up, as you say, like over 300,000 listens as a result of being part of these compilations. And that's just pushed them through as being this major new talent. But actually, it seems, as you say, despite they protest too much, that they are actually just a little bit quiet, but they're all really good guys. It seems like it's entirely AI. And yeah, but again, this is where we are, is we don't know comprehensively what is AI and what is not. And that is going to be a feature of a lot of where we go and a lot of our conversations over the next coming months and weeks for sure.
I think one interesting one for me, it was a conspiracy theory to start with, was the idea that maybe this was even Spotify, and Spotify are building their own music so they don't have to pay artists. And therefore, it's almost like an AI Spotify. So you can literally go on there, choose your genre, and it'll be brand new AI created music, but not from anyone. And so it's
Oh,
certainly
God.
interesting to see if that's where it goes, rather than paying out the royalties to the people who have gone through that blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there is truth in that we only have so much attention per day. So if we end up listening to loads of AI kind of music, then that necessarily will remove somebody else's songs from our little compilations for our list. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. I think we're going to come across more of these questionable ideas before we get really serious about how to stop some of this coming through, because I think for a lot of people that they're just not going to want to hear this, and which I think is absolutely legitimate. Some people will absolutely love it, but they probably should be told that this is what it is, rather than it being some kind of giant wonder about whether this is real or not. Okay, so next up, talking about AI not doing great things, we have been treated to the sight of an AI trying to be a shopkeeper and not being very good at it at all.
No, this is AI Claudius who took over running of the shop. That's the name that they gave it. Probably used AI to come up with a name for Claude that could run a shop, but left to its own devices and encouraged her along. It went a bit rogue on restocking and ordering it. Someone at one point requested a tungsten cube, which is a small metal cube, and Claudius loved the idea and went off and stocked the fridges with these tungsten cubes. So wasn't doing very well with the sort of stock ordering approach to the shops, and certainly hasn't gone down well in that respect.
No, and then it decided that it was actually human and physically present, and actually started arguing with people who said that it hadn't been present at a particular meeting wearing a blazer and a tie, and became quite almost angry about the fact that it was being called out for not having done this. But again, before everyone kind of freaks out massively, did this sort of Anthropic who make Claude are really good at bringing to our attention these things. Almost none of the other frontier labs do anything like this or tell us anything about what happens behind the scenes. Whereas Anthropic is really good at going, look, we tested this stuff out and this is honestly what happened. But the fact that they're doing all these tests, the fact that they are acknowledging it and talking to us about it means they can fix it. Right. And that is something that obviously is going to be really important, because as AI becomes an increasing part of our day to day, we want to make sure that the alignment, as it is known, which is that AI aligns with human necessities, is good and strong and complete. Otherwise, if you've got these rogue AIs that are doing some crazy stuff, then we've got some serious problems. You may have seen them in the movies. But yes, this is yet another really strong way of articulating just how far we've come, A, with the technology, but B, just how hard we are working to make sure that technology doesn't do things like shortchange us in shops and stuff, I imagine, which is where Claudius is probably going to end up.
And another one that shows just how far we've come is Philip Schmidt wrote an article, didn't he, that you pulled out to do with context engineering being the new prompt engineering for agentic or AI agents.
Yeah.
And I think this one was interesting because obviously when generative AI hit, the context windows were quite small, weren't they? So we're all encouraged to be prompt engineers, and that's a term that's died quite quickly, or rather been
Yeah.
replaced with context engineering.
Yeah, and so prompt engineer, this was one of the kind of early great hopes for what we were all going to be doing, right? So what's a job that AI is going to have? Just software engineer was a job that kind of the building of technology, the PCs, etc., produced. And prompt engineer was something that everyone's ever done. So yeah, you're going to need to actually be really good at prompting. But actually, AI is really good at telling you how to prompt, so it's not really a thing. Context engineering is really how you orchestrate all of these AI agents. So just to recap, agentic AI/AI agents are AI that you give jobs to. Okay. And you can have a kind of swarm of them all doing different tasks within the same overall job. And there needs to be something to orchestrate them and someone to orchestrate that and to engineer the context in which they work. And that's what this guy, Philip Schmidt, is really focused on. He's Google DeepMind. He's an absolute massive brain. And yeah, he's basically positing this as really a really important role in the future. And I have to say, I hugely agree. If you were to articulate this in terms of agency, estate agency, lettings agency, then, all those administrative functions that would go into, for example, booking a viewing, you have a human kind of overseeing context engineering that particular process and making sure that all the AIs are doing their thing. They're qualifying the lead. One's qualifying the lead. One is checking the property availability. One is understanding how far you have to, or how long it's going to take to drive between all of these different appointments. Another one is confirming back to whichever of the applicants it qualifies for the property, and so on and so forth. So that function, which is a very logistical kind of function, and as we say, context engineering, I think is going to be a really important kind of role for certainly business in our industry, and I think in pretty much every industry. Okay, so next up, we have a story about, it's a big McKinsey report that drops this week. And I felt it was really important to just include it because it's a broad view. And if you want to go and have a very specific look, Search up McKinsey and Company seizing the agentic AI advantage. But there's just a few kind of bullet points that I think are really important. Then this is where AIs are able to go and do things for us because we just give them tasks and they go off and do it and come back, and we essentially just sort of administrators of those particular AIs. So 5 main points from the article from the McKinsey report is there is a generative AI paradox, which is that 80% of companies have adopted some generative AI, but at this point have seen no significant impact on their bottom line. Now, it is still very early. Much of this adoption is all about kind of testing stuff, but it's still yet to be seen in terms of the overall significant value to these organizations. But testing is so important. To sit there and expect an AI to be just switched on and then suddenly it's going to transform your business, I think it is naive at best. So it's really important to keep testing, really important to start deploying these things and get a real feel for how they impact your business. AI agents as a breakthrough. This is the agentic AI. This is autonomous goal-driven systems. This is coming and it's in place in a lot of locations already. But again, it's going to be something I think in our industry, it's going to be really important too. Process reinvention. Matt, you and I talk about this kind of thing all the time, right? It's about splitting up a job role into individual tasks.
And also, importantly, not just crowbarring in AI into what you're doing at present. It's very much that business transformation that we've had historically. Now, maybe even go back as far as time motion. Don't just go, we do this at the moment, and therefore we're going to stick AI in place of Dorothy. It's a case of saying a lot of businesses are doing things in the way they are because of the way that the CRM's set up or the way that the department's been set historically. Look at that process, reinvent it with the view of how you're going to then utilize agentic AI or generative AI way through. Because if you take it back to the real world process, a lot of things you're doing have become that way and cumbersomely because that just fitted some scenario that came up 6 years ago that you've said, oh, yes, let's stick this process in place to cover that. And actually start from scratch and with the view of now we can totally reinvent this process.
Exactly that. And then you look at really, if you were to go back to the late 90s and how you processed photographs, for example, or how you made adverts or how organized your Rolodex of hot leads and stuff like that, it's just so different. The tasks required are roughly the same, broadly the same, but how you go about them is fundamentally different. And I just think that, as you say, it is going to change how we do these things, not necessarily what we do. You're not going to necessarily have to plug into a CRM system for certain things that you do right now. And it's really important that you just look at it and rethink the whole thing. And obviously, that's something that we talk about all the time. It's a really important part of improving and making more efficient the businesses that you operate in. There's a couple more points from this report, again, that are really important. So it talks about the agentic AI mesh. This reflects back on what we were just talking about with regards to the sort of context engineer and the fact that these AI agents need to mesh together and need to actually understand what each other's doing and deliver on the end goal. And you need to organize that mesh. And then the final one is the all important, which is the human challenge and CEO leadership, which is we all have to step up and we've all got to understand what all of this is about. Because if you don't, then you and your business is going to be in real trouble. One of the things you need to keep doing is obviously listening to this podcast.
100%, 100% on that point. And I think that the key part for me is that people say, what's your AI strategy? It shouldn't be what's the AI strategy. It should be what's our business strategy with AI baked into it. If it's a completely separate AI strategy with a different team of people going off and doing it, then you're going off half-cocked. And if you're listening to us, you'll hear us say that on a regular basis. And for me, the agentic AI mesh, we're talking about agentic is a team, and you just distilled it into all those different roles. And it's a case of how do you bring that team of agentic beings together? And you overseeing that as a manager and think of it in that way. So what is it? Clear handoffs between the individuals. They know when it's where their job's passed and they're passing the baton on. And sometimes I think these new fancy terms scare people off, and McKinsey have done it now. KPMG had mentioned it last week. But it's like you've got a team of agents going off, and we say agentic so we don't get confused with property agents. But in this example, we've got a team of agentic agents going off, and we're just the team manager overseeing everything and making sure that they're delivering to the expectations.
Exactly. And just to be clear as well, this isn't just because then we can get rid of all the other humans. It's because then we can actually get the team and the humans to do human stuff, which is relationship building, which is negotiation, all the stuff that that's revenue generative, that actually is attractive to business, because the AI agents, the agentic AI, will be able to go and sort out all of the really dull, boring admin stuff. And then we can all go out and have some really, really good stuff, building relationships and building our businesses and our revenues as a result. All right, one final thing in our AI and tech news, because we need to return to it because we chatted about it last week, and we talked about having an in-ear AI gadget from Johnny Ive and from Sam Altman. They have denied in court that it's going to be a wearable, i.e. an in-ear device. So the latest goss, hot off the press, is apparently OpenAI's AI gadget is going to be a pen/pencil. I'm slightly underwhelmed, Matt. Make it more excited.
Well,
Make me
the
more
picture
excited.
looks like a Mont Blanc, so I'm just thinking, how can I afford that? So I've got the Apple Pencil. Someone asked
Mm,
me when I was at Property Academy the other week what I was doing, and it was because I was writing in my iPad Mini rather than tapping away. And I like the idea of not having a laptop in a session when I'm speaking to people, because it's so much more informal when you've got a pen and paper, or pen and iPad in my case. And Remarkable 2's done so well, hasn't it? But I can see
yeah.
why you're underwhelmed. I liked my lighter idea from last week.
Yeah, man, go with that.
You missed that one, go back, listen to it, Johnny Ive. You
Yeah.
can catch the detail there. But I also saw
Big
the
Matt's on it.
old-fashioned iPod Mini Shuffle had come up as being, this could be what it is, using the same form factor as that. I think there's going to be was it 2026 they
Mm,
start shipping them? It
that's when
seems
I
like
reckon.
way
Yeah,
away.
that's when I reckon.
And the only other thing that came out this week is that it's not getting made in China. It's obviously worried about the tariffs over there.
Yeah, so I think Vietnam is the location. I'm sure, yeah, Trump is just going to sit and go, hold on, that's not the US of A. I'm going to slap some tariffs on that as well. So yes, remains to be seen how much it's going to cost. But yeah, still, honestly, with the greatest respect to like pens, and I know, as you say, the remarkable thing is great, which is it's essentially it's a screen that you can write on, and it's all very cool. But my handwriting is so terrible now because I just don't use. I haven't used it in so long. I used to have one of those Palm Pilots that I loved, and like I
Wow.
used to do. Honest to God, they're so good. But yeah, that was probably the last time that I really wrote anything in any kind of anger.
And
So
I
yeah,
think that's
now,
probably
but
the same time that most people listening to this start going to the junior school.
yeah, thanks.
You're
You're
welcome.
right down to earth. Yeah,
Pilots.
that's true. Yeah, Palm Pilots. Yeah, imagine everyone just sitting there going, "What the hell could that possibly
That's
be?"
it. I was
Uh,
thinking, is that cash converters or is that a museum that I can see one of those?
Probably both. That is the end of our slightly sarcastic AI tech news. Let us now very quickly dive into our AI tool of the week. Now, AI tool of the week, I am really excited by this,
No,
not
I'm
just
not.
because I'm the only person on the out of the two of us that actually used it and can use it. Matt, it's a really great thing. It's called DIA, DIA, and it's a new browser. Why haven't you used it yet?
I thought I should go check that out before we actually did this show. And
What did you find?
it only works on Macs.
What? Oh my God, you need to upgrade, buddy. Talking about all this museum stuff and being an old git,
I've
etc.
got my iPad, I've
So
got my iPhone, I've got my Apple Watch, but no, it has to be a Mac. And a
a MacBook
very specific details on the Mac as well, which I can't currently find.
specs.
So, yeah,
Yes,
the spec
so
is OS 14 plus with M1 chips or later.
that's what I got, buddy. So yeah, so I've been using DIA, DIA, which is a browser from the browser company. It is, honest to God, it's brilliant. So I downloaded it probably last Tuesday, something like that. So that was like 6 days ago. I've stopped using Google Chrome. Right? It is
Wow.
that different. So essentially, what it does is it has AI baked into it. So it looks and feels very much like your Google Chrome. But what you do is anytime you instead of having to click on loads of things and then go and search on Google for stuff and then get some answers and then try and work out what that really is, literally there's a button in the top right corner called Chat. It's personalized to you, so it remembers everything that you've spoken to it about. You click on that and you can ask questions about anything that's in your browser and indeed any of the other tabs that are open at the same time. So you can actually have two distinct, let's say two estate agents open, for example, and then you can ask about the difference between the two of them, where they're based, blah, blah, blah. And it just answers like that. It's so good. So yeah, if you happen to have a reasonable technological advanced kit that can work modern stuff, then I'll go and check it out.
That's it. I'll be working out what the Windows equivalent of Parallels is and installing that.
Yeah, good luck. All right, so that is us. Just one tiny last thing. If you get a little bit of time, do go and have a look on YouTube for China's first 3-on-3 humanoid robot soccer league kickoff. It's just so funny. There is a moment, so they've got these little robots who are like 4'7" or something, and they're trying to kick the ball, and it's like toddlers trying to kick the ball. But there's a moment where one of them falls over and they rush on with a little stretcher. It's really cool. So have a look at that. But that aside, thank you so much for being with us this week as ever. We're going to be back next week with even more delightful property and AI news. Thanks very much indeed for being there, Matt, and looking forward to seeing you on Thursday at the Kerfuffle Con.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing you then, and have a great week, everyone.
Yeah, thanks guys. Take care. See you soon.